Okay, it is now live streaming. So it's ready whenever you guys are.
Great. Thanks, Krista.
So I suppose, Sarah, inadvertently, we also have Dr. Vanderkook totally Zoom recorded.
Yes, right. Well, I don't know if it recorded it though. Does it record it automatically to the cloud?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I see Andrea online there. Okay.
Hey, Krista, what does the little cloud with the red dot mean by our names?
It means that it's recording.
Oh,
It's not only live streaming, but it's recording to the cloud.
oh, to the cloud. I'm like, what is that little blob with the red dot? But it's the
Yeah.
cloud.
Yep.
Got it. How many did you say we needed, Sarah?
We need 10, so we need a couple more. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We need 3 more.
I'm not a member of the committee, you know.
Well, actually you are. Yep, you are now that you're chair of the Judiciary and Law Committee. So you are kind of one of the de facto members just by the position that you hold. So, yeah, so welcome.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm glad I came.
I'm glad you came too.
We also have anyway, but
we also have another change in the public defender's office. So that position continues to kind of rotate, and I think it's Shelley Tomczyk right now that's representing us in Dunn County.
So I get to vote and everything?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
You moved up.
Just practicing.
have to say that this whole Zoom experience is so much more pleasant when you have a full screen. I've been doing it off of my phone because I don't have a webcam. And so today I went and stole one out of a conference room. And it's really a very different experience than when you guys are like this big.
I share somewhat of the same experience, Chris. I for the first year and a half after I moved up here, up to Wisconsin from Southern Illinois, there was nobody that would provide internet service to where I live. And so for the first year and a half, if I was doing any work from home, it was all on my cell phone, like grading and everything. And once I got internet, I'm like, this is just something completely different. So it is.
Yeah, this is like way better. Well, Sarah, you got an idea about how long you want to wait?
Hey, Sarah, I did just get a message from the judge's office that they thought this was on Google Meets. So I think there might be some confusion about whether people are joining by Google or Zoom.
All right, I will do that right now. Oops.
I see BJ joined us. Jeannie.
All right.
Yeah, when you're doing these Zoom invites through the calendar, once you add a guest, that Google Meet will automatically come up, and you've got to X out of it before you save and send out that meeting, or else it will have both of them in there.
Yeah, that's a good thing to know.
Damn it. Damn it.
Just, you can grab that Zoom link and just email them that link if they're just going to join in. Yeah.
I am.
I think I'm there.
Oh, you're here.
I came the long way around, by the way.
Got
And
stuck in traffic?
Well, yeah, no, I think Miss Moore knows what happened.
She did. She informed us.
Oh, did she already?
Yes.
Hey, way to go. That's not fair.
She did it tastefully.
Yeah. Didn't throw me under the bus?
Nope.
Okay.
I don't think I heard doorknob at all.
Yeah. Mr. Bartlett, good day.
Good day.
All
I
right,
didn't think you got your 10 there, Sarah.
Yep, looks like our chair's on line as well.
But he's got to unmute himself.
Yeah, we had a little trouble getting in. We didn't have that. We just didn't have the meeting information. So,
I just resent it.
and yeah, we had just got done with court, so it's been a hectic day. Okay, so you're already you're rolling, are you?
No,
Yep.
we were just waiting for folks to get here, so we haven't quite started, just doing roll call, sort of.
Are we expecting anybody else right now? Well, we got quite a few people. I'm just looking around to see what we have. So we have some people without pictures. Okay.
So Judge, whenever you want to get started, and if you would like to do introductions, we can certainly do that. However you'd like to proceed.
Okay, well, it's just everybody looks familiar to me. And is there anybody here that doesn't know anybody else that's on the meeting so far? If yes, please indicate. And I'm assuming everybody's had some familiarity with Zoom, so aware of, muting or unmuting your microphones and so forth. Okay, well, I'm just gonna kind of skip introductions because I think we all, if something does come up and there's somebody you haven't met, we'll certainly introduce you. Names are, I think, on everybody, and I see we have our county board chair and then the new chair of our Judiciary and Law Committee, Mr. Tripp, Supervisor Tripp, on with us. We wanted to get a meeting together with CJCC because I think once the COVID pandemic struck, we canceled meetings and we haven't had any meetings since probably, I don't even know, Sarah, when the last one was. So Sarah and Chris Corporal and I spoke a while back, and we agreed that it would be a good idea just to touch base and to kind of go around and kind of share what each of the agencies or departments or the entity that you are with is, how the pandemic is affecting you and what sort of measures that you have to take, and how things look going forward. Anything that you think is relevant to share with your criminal justice partners. And I see we don't have anybody from the sheriff's office, and that's one where maybe I need to maybe set up a meeting just with the sheriff's office and the jail, because I have all sorts of questions about things that we can do, and whether people can report to do their DNA samples and fingerprinting, or do we have to wait on that, as well as if we do a jail sanction and how things look in terms of Hubert. There's all sorts of things. So I don't know who would like to start off. Okay, Shelley. And we'd love to hear about what's going on over at Arbor. You're still with Arbor, right?
I am still with Arbor. We currently at Arbor Place in the prevention office, we are all working from home in the prevention office. Of course, the rest of the facility is at a limited number of employees, but they're still functioning. They're also doing telehealth through the outpatient counseling area. As far as personally, I can tell you honestly and truly that I super struggled with having to stay home. I'm an extrovert and struggled with it, and on a recovery basis, I am so happy that the Chippewa Valley Narcotics Anonymous started a Zoom online meeting within a week's time, and I think I probably attended more NA meetings via Zoom than I ever did in person. It's been a lifesaver for me. So we've had people from all over the country come to our Chippewa Valley NA meetings. So that's how I've been surviving, and I've been continuing to work every day. And Dunn County Partnership for Youth is up and going and doing good.
Okay, well,
Shelley,
tell us more about, Oh, I'm sorry. Someone have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask her, Judge, Shelley, how do you have a feel for going forward when you're gonna inch where you probably have more of the staff coming in? And I'm probably a little bit old fashioned, but in the work you do, it's almost like you hate to use the term hands-on, but face-to-face type contact seems to be more effective. I'm not saying, the Zoom type meeting doesn't work, but it seems like you really need to have that face-to-face with your clients. I don't know.
Well, and I'm not actually in the counseling area anymore. I'm in prevention, but
Sure.
I know that as a counselor that I would be greatly affected by doing this via Zoom. I can say though that even with the prevention office, our job is mainly to be out with people, just the same as it would be as a one-on-one with a client. And it's difficult. We don't have that. So we're trying to use Zoom. We're learning some more new ways to be able to present some of our materials for the prevention office. But I know that I'm also filling in, and I've always done this since I've worked at Arbor. I filled in as a residential treatment worker, which means I do get the chance to go in and be with the clients. In the beginning, we went through and tested everybody, basically quarantine. We still are admitting people, but they're coming in with, they're being tested with temperature wise and question about any symptomatic type things. But I can say they're being very cautious there. I know our numbers are down in the residential area because of this pandemic, because people don't want to come in right now. Yeah.
Well, I've noticed we've had a number of people actually go into inpatient treatment during this time. What kind of gatekeeping is there for that?
For the upon arrival, you mean?
Well, if whether someone is going to be able to, someone that actually needs to come into residential inpatient treatment.
It's the same as it always has been, Judge Peterson. It's Lorraine still handles all of the admissions. There's actually, to be honest with you, there's not a whole lot of difference. We still have people working in the front office. Mm-hmm. So we still have staff that are there 24/7.
Okay, and how is
because of it being residential and being essential, and there's really not a whole lot of, there's precautionary measures, but we're still admitting people the same as we always were.
And are screened for COVID or COVID exposure?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions for Shelley at this point? And again, I imagine it's maybe part of the Arbor stuff that you're not aware of, but at least from your perspective. So thanks. Anybody else have any questions for Shelley and what's going on over at Arbor? Okay. I guess, as long as we have county board here, I just wonder, Chair Bartlett, how are things, how is the county board doing business, and how do things look going forward for the county? And, what are some of the concerns as far as revenue and how that's going to be affecting things?
Well, going forward, this month yet, we're going to meet by Zoom. Definitely, maybe in June, maybe we can start having meetings in person. We don't know that for sure yet. We haven't decided. Revenue wise, the county's going to take a big hit. Sales tax has been estimated that the revenue will be down between $300,000 and $550,000-$600,000. So yeah, there's definitely going to be some challenges this next year.
Okay. All right. Anything else that you'd like to add that we should be aware of, that as far as our various departments? Is it going to have you think, a significant impact on the budget process?
I don't think the budget process will change. I believe we may have to prioritize more. I don't know. I hope not, but that may happen, or everything is being affected. Solid waste is looking at a big deficit already for this year to continue already. So that's going to affect some things if the county board, that'll be on this month's county board, whether we should do a budget adjustment of 330,000 for that for this year. And that's going to affect us for next year's budget also. I don't know that we know how many different departments this is going to affect at this point. I'm wondering if it will affect something in Health and Human Services. I wouldn't be surprised if it did. It's definitely going to affect the health department's budget. And it could affect all of your budgets too. I wouldn't be surprised to see other budgets being affected this year by this.
Okay, and Judge Smelser, you've got your hand up. Why don't you go ahead?
I just wanted to ask Chair Bartlett a question, and probably Supervisor Tripp as well. How aggressively is the Wisconsin Counties Association lobbying Congress, congressional and representatives from Wisconsin and our senators from Wisconsin that local and state governments need support? That they talk about, you hear some things on the national news that maybe they'll come up with a third stimulus package that would include state and local governments. The question I have is the Wisconsin Counties Association and asking us as local counties to aggressively pass resolutions to send to our congressmen and stuff. Any of that going on?
They definitely are working at that and suggesting at times that we contact our legislative people. The last stimulus package that I heard for counties, it may be a higher population than what Dunn County is, so we might not be getting anything, but nobody knows what's going to happen until it gets closer. So
it's all proportional. I mean, we're all affected. We're part of this country too. But anyway, I asked the question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe Jim has something more. He's involved with the WCA more than I am. Maybe he's got something to add.
Supervisor Tripp?
Thank you. Nothing really to add. Dave said it. We've been contacted a number of times to reach out to our federal representation, urging them to support various parts of the bills that have passed that will funnel money directly to counties. The WCA, to my knowledge, has not asked or recommended that we pass resolutions. That could come down the road. And the only other thing I would have to add is that we did have a conference call with Tammy Baldwin a couple of weeks ago and had a chance to express to her the particular problems that counties face in this. And she was very receptive. And primarily the lobbying the federal government at this stage is a function of the National Association of Counties that we participate in. Wisconsin Counties Association has pretty much had their hands full with Wisconsin issues. But we'll continue to lobby as best we can.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, and again, we'll just end up with a free-for-all in a little while here, but I thought we'd just move around. So Chris, the Department of Human Services, how is this, how has the agency been affected over the last couple of months? Got to unmute.
Forgot I
There we
muted
go.
myself.
Yes.
For the most part, we were able to redeploy our workforce pretty quickly. We had the benefit last year of buying a bunch of IT equipment. We had a number of different grants that we were able to capitalize on. And so we had probably purchased 30 to 40 laptops last year, which was to our benefit when it got to this year. So we were able to move our workforce out into home, except for about 8 to 10 people, very quickly. So everyone is working, doing their job remotely. All those with direct consumer contact are having that happen remotely as well. So using a variety of different platforms. Through the clinic, we use a tool called DoxyMe, which is a HIPAA compliant platform for doing our therapy and our psychiatry and all those sorts of things. Yeah, the only things that continue to happen in person are we do some intakes for the clinic in person, depending on the circumstances. And we do psychotropic medication, intramuscular injections happen in person. But so the jail, we can continue to provide mental health services in the jail. They do that remotely. So for the most part, honestly, we could reconfigure pretty quickly. And I don't know that. I mean, everything's changed and then nothing's changed. I think some of the hardest hit population are our kids, our little kids that are in placements, families that have not been able to do in-person visitation with their children. Works okay to do that remotely if you are of sort of screen time age, but it doesn't work terribly well with an infant or a toddler. Financially, honestly, we're saving money. Dave smile.
It's good to have a few smiles and all.
Because staff they're not doing professional development, they're not traveling. Our child protective service placements, we had done a lot of work on those at the beginning of the year, and because some of those court-related activities for terminations of parental rights and things had continued to happen, we're at a 10-year low in the number of kids we have in placement. Our crisis calls to our crisis line have not seen a huge uptick. And so, yeah, so we're actually in financially okay shape. I think I'm curious to see, what month are we in? May. I'm curious to see April's revenue numbers for the things that we bill for, because there was an adjustment period there in late March and early April to get people out and working from telehealth. So I'll be curious to see what those numbers look like, but for the most part, we're actually in really pretty good financial shape right now.
So how is it working with the mental health treatment in the jail? I mean, what do you see there? You see any significant upticks in mental health issues, crises, anything like that?
You know, I don't know an answer to that question. I haven't heard that. I think that, yeah, I think that I haven't heard that. So
It seems to be working okay.
yeah, it does.
And do you think some of this may continue with like remote contact using Zoom after, I guess, maybe the crisis period subsides?
So much of it's going to depend on what all of the so I think to the jail where we're not billing any third-party entity, that could continue remotely. There are and probably will, at least at some level, maybe for those things that we actually bill a third party for, Medicaid, Medicare, or private insurance. I mean, a lot of those rules are relaxed right now, but we have literally no idea how many of those will stay relaxed or go back to being more restrictive, and a lot of that will determine. I mean, I chuckle when I hear like Judge Smeltzer say, you know, you get used to this working remotely stuff. But for a lot of the population that we serve, this is their first language. They're used to FaceTime and messaging and Facebook Messenger and all of those sorts of things. So for a lot of them, they actually probably prefer doing it remotely versus doing it in person. Now we still have some people that obviously really miss the in-person contact, but we have a lot of people that, so I know like in Shelley's in the prevention world, but we have a large grant with Arbor Place to do some early intervention or prevention work in the middle schools. And that group are working, those kids that love being online together.
Interesting. Yep. Sarah, can I jump to you? You tell me in your division with, you know, I'm just thinking, you know, we've got assessments that were taking place in the jail and, you know, the various programs, top program and a treatment court program. Could you kind of sum up where things are at with that?
Sure. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so the assessment piece, Sandy Frigo does that. So that has went remote. So the jail staff assists Sandy in setting up phone meetings with folks down there in the jail for the longer term assessment. The shorter term, the pre-trial screener and the mental health screener and the Texas Christian University drug screen, that piece has not been done since we've moved to the COVID. There's just a lack of opportunity for Sandy to meet with those people on the phone in the morning. There was also a simultaneous booking remodel in the jail, so things were tight for a while down there. But she has been able to continue the longer term assessments for folks that were in jail. That would be for the reentry program and then for the various treatment courts or the TOP program. That's been going very well, and a lot of the participants are very open and responsive to doing these online, so that's been very helpful. And we've probably had you know, better follow through as far as appointments when it comes to doing these on the phone. Just participants find it's a lot more convenient for them to participate in some of these things without physically having to come in or take work off. As far as the TAD program, that continues. So Sandy does the assessment piece, the intakes, and then if they are ordered to participate in TOP through the court, then those participants continue to participate with that. So we have Janae Brantner as our TOP coordinator. So she continues to work with them, and then Lindsay Field as well. It's kind of a dual case management role. So a lot of those, all of those meetings have went to remote meetings, so telephone meetings or Zoom meetings for that group. The drug testing piece for the TOP, we were doing it in the office in person. That is not occurring because our staff, as Chris' staff, she talked about her staff quickly deploying. Ours did too in the criminal justice division. So all of our staff really had the technology and the ability to work from home immediately. So that was great that we had the county support and the IT to actually deliver that. We find that a lot of the participants, some of them enjoy that kind of contact, but others really benefit from that face-to-face, that personal relationship building. But that's been moving along fine. And the participants, as we heard from Shelley Jo Metzger, with Arbor Place, they're continuing to participate in the treatment options. A lot of those treatments have moved to telehealth. Initially, there was a little bit of delay trying to get those appointments scheduled, but things seem to be you know, available now and timely for folks. With the treatment court, so we have our the adult treatment court That has been going well. We've been holding, as you know, Judge, leading that team, holding the court sessions remotely via Zoom. Participants call in. We have continued drug testing out in the community with our vendor. So that program, I think, nicely kind of shifted to the virtual world, and we're still having all the same, essentially all the same requirements for the participants. It's been kind of neat to see everyone just kind of adapt to the technology, not only staff that are working it, but also participants. I think we're all kind of learning as we go here. And then the same with the family treatment court. So Judge Smeltzer leads up that team that is also went to remote court sessions with all the our human service partners and my staff working with them remotely. And again, that relationship piece can be hard to develop that relationship, or when people are struggling, it's just a lot easier to actually do our job when we're with somebody. But everyone seems to be adapting well overall. I would say there has been more struggles with recovery at times with some of our participants, but then there's also been new opportunities for them to connect. So just as Shelley talked about, some of the AANA meetings that are online, there's a lot of new opportunities for people to get that recovery support. So it's been an interesting couple of months, and I think we've all really adapted and learned how we can do our jobs differently and still get the desired outcomes that we're looking for. So that's exciting. And then I think looking ahead, I think because we've done so many of these things, it is going to change how we do work in the future. And just because our stay-at-home order may have ended doesn't mean the pandemic's gone and some of these precautions need to be thrown out the window. So I think some of these things are going to be going on for the future. Yes, Judge? You're muted.
I mute.
Okay, there we go. All right. What you had referenced about doing, and Shelley talked about it as well, and I encourage your staff to encourage folks to get involved in the, you know, NA or AA or whatever it is when they can do it remotely. It might be a way that, because a lot of times we used to have, you know, transportation issues. I can't go to a meeting because I don't have transportation. Well, this is a way that they might be able to get around it. And that's one thing I see a little bit lacking with the group I work with, that they're probably not connecting with some of these support groups as much as they should. And I think that's needed, but of course they got to figure that out as they walk, you know, on this journey. But I think, Shelley, that was a good comment, because I think that's a way that we can adapt a little bit to maybe use it more than we have in the past.
And then lastly, I'd like to just update on the reentry program. So reentry has been providing supports in the community, mostly on the phone or via Zoom to participants that are out in the community. Reentry specialists haven't been able to get into the jail due to the COVID and the booking remodel. But they've been able to work with folks that have already been out in the community. And then our program director / reentry coordinator in the jail, there's been a pause on some of the jail programming just because of the remodel that was going on down there, and then actually having the groups of inmates together. So it'll be interesting to hear from the jail or sheriff's department on you know, how things are, how they plan on adapting moving forward.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Sarah? You know, one question I have, and again, if you do, just raise your hand. Is what about the drug testing situation? Is that significantly impacting the effectiveness of like the TOP program, for example? That
Right.
No. So we contract with a provider in the community for drug testing that has been moving. They continue to do business as normal. Our top program, which is a TAD state grant funded program, to save money, we had our own staff administering those drug tests. They didn't need that level of kind of drug testing, but we have switched that to our vendor. So they are getting that drug testing component, which is important for accountability and important for treatment adherence. And just knowing that right now, so many people are struggling, that we want to be able to provide that service to them. So that has adjusted, but I wouldn't say went by the wayside. And then we've also been exploring other drug testing methodologies that might not be the most cost effective, overall, but due to people's inability to get to testing or to participate because of the general safety concerns, we're able to utilize some of those. So for example, the sweat patch, where it's actually a patch that go on your body and stay on there for 14 days and measure if there's been any chemical use or alcohol. Well, it doesn't do alcohol, but chemical use. So that's something that typically we wouldn't use that type of testing, just because it's not our ideal, but it does serve a purpose for folks that we need to have that testing and accountability for.
Okay. All right. Again, any questions? I'm going to look around, make sure I don't miss anybody. And for those of you who maybe we don't have your picture, I know Miss Landy and Miss Biskin. Any of you have questions? Okay. All right. Well, Andrea, can I ask you to kind of share, what's happening with the DA's office? And, I'm kind of curious about, the input, the cases that you're seeing. You see an increase, and, how this is affecting your staff and doing your job.
Sure. So we transitioned to paperless a couple years ago, so it was an easy transition. I still had the attorneys come to work daily because the attorneys are still going into court for court proceedings, and we still have meetings with victims. They're just occurring over the telephone. We're still having meetings with defense attorneys. Those are occurring over the telephone. We haven't been having our traffic pretrials, so our traffic numbers are definitely down. I think in June, one day we have like over 200 some traffic tickets scheduled right now. So certainly the backlash is coming, and it's coming on strong, but we're gonna, I think, work with Katie Shalley to make that happen as smooth as we can. As far as caseload, our domestics are certainly up. Law enforcement has been pretty consistently referring individuals. There was a time where there was like a week lag, and it's like, is crime still going on? And I think then they all kind of came up at once. So they came up in a big batch. And so I think, even this week we had 10 on the jail list on Monday, and usually, it seemed like it was 0 or 1 or 2. So there was certainly a lull there. But I think certainly our domestics are up, our OWIs are still going strong, and it seems like our drugs haven't slowed down at all, but all of our other cases, they're still occurring, they're just not arresting them. So I think we will have a busy fall, let's put it that way.
Well, I've noticed a lot more cite and release with no bonds. Do you know whether people are being fingerprinted or booked at all, or and what the jail's doing with that? So
I don't know.
Okay. I'll probably have to wait for my jail questions. Okay, anything else, any observations that, other observations you've made about what's going on and what we're gonna face in the next few months?
And I don't know if Barb Landy will talk about this, but I think the live streaming has been beneficial. The courts have been live streaming on YouTube, so that's been nice for victims to see what's going on. And so that's worked out well. We have our 5th prosecutor, so there's 4 other ADAs, and Amber Hahn started on April 20th. So that's been nice. So hopefully we'll be ready to roll when we're at full speed.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions for the district attorney? Okay, I don't see any. People are probably looking at the clock saying, oh, it's going to get close to 5. So, okay. I'm kind of going around the bend here, and Allison, you're next on my screen. Is anything from your perspective from the city and the city prosecution and, from your perspective?
No, I would agree with everything Andrea just said. The clerk of court has kind of postponed traffic court. And so there is going to be a big backlash at some point, but I do know the DA's office has been floating some ideas to the clerk of court's office to try to make that streamlined. So I'm optimistic it shouldn't be as bad as it could be if we weren't proactive with planning. So I think it'll get resolved. We just might do things a little different.
Okay. And Ms. Ackland, you're the next one, Professor Ackland. Is there, or Dr. Ackland, I make sure I get titles correct. Anything that you'd like to share from your perspective?
Yeah, Stout is not in a great place right now as a university. We are facing huge deficits. We had a chaotic spring semester where, mid-semester we transitioned from face-to-face instruction to all online. And from the perspective of the students, some instructors have done a very good job at the transition, some have not. And I think that has to deal with, as instructors and faculty members, we had the option to do it either synchronously, meaning holding class when it was scheduled, or asynchronously, meaning tape your lectures and then pull some online. Personally, I've chosen to maintain the structure and hold classes synchronously just to give the students that consistency. But financially, we're not in a great place. Scout has already issued, I think, a total of 96 furlough notices so far. We as faculty members on a 9-month contract will have to take 9 furlough days over the 9-month academic year coming up. 12-month contract workers will have to take the total of 12 furlough days. So that's where we stand right now. I do believe campus is still closed to anybody considered, unless they're considered essential workers, and will remain closed until at least the end of June. There's still a wide debate as to what's going to happen in the fall. We don't know if we're going to resume face-to-face instruction or if we're going to do online. Certainly this hits the bachelor level students a bit more than the master level students, and I'm only speaking from my perspective. A lot of my students prefer face-to-face, and I prefer face-to-face instruction, but we have made it happen online. Just a lot of my students wake up 5 minutes before class and they're camera shy because they're like, well, I just rolled out of bed. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Everybody just rolled out of bed to come to class. But where we are really struggling is with COVID-19, and I've worked with several of you on this, is our field experience placement. We're having difficulties having students being placed in agencies, especially in the criminal justice world end of things, to get their practicums done. That's been an issue. And also employment for people like me has, it's a scary situation. We're not sure what's going to happen. For example, I won't be teaching this summer. So there's concern of, well, July to October, no income. What do I do? And I'm certainly not the only person in that position. But what we are facing as a university is, what do we do to make up You know, we were, I think, 1 million in debt. And with COVID, I think that number has increased. Now, don't quote me on this, but I think the number has increased to like 7.5 million. Because we don't have revenue from the student center, the housing, the things that we usually would. And so now there's the issue with how do we survive as a university? How do we work with the debts that we're facing, the deficits that we're facing, but also where does Scout fit in the larger community and the UW systems? And we just don't know, you know, and so it definitely has an impact. It has an impact on our students, especially our officers in training, our correctional officers, you know, our criminal justice students. But what I do have to say is for our students who have been dealing with the transition, especially in terms of practicum, in the different, you know, human service and criminal justice fields, many of them, maybe not all, but many of them have thrived and worked through the barriers. So we're just in a situation, I think, like many, that we just don't know. And it's really hard to plan when you don't know. So that's about all the updates that I have regarding Scout and as a community member. So.
Okay, well, question for you is how many Scout students are still living in the community as opposed to, you know, having gone back to their hometowns?
Well, by community, do you mean here in Menominee?
Yes. Yeah, Menominee or Dunn County.
Okay, I would say, now this is just for my personal observation, about maybe 30% of my students, 30 to 40, have remained in Menominee. The rest have, well, there's two situations. Either they've been deployed on military duty or they've moved back to their hometowns. So a lot of students are now back in Minnesota. A lot of students are in other states because we really do have students coming from across the country for our criminal justice program. But the issue then becomes for the students who are here in Menominee, how do they pay their rent? How do they financially survive? You know, many of them are unemployed now. They are opting not to take summer courses because of the financial cost. And a lot of them are trying to sublease their places so that they can move back. And so where that interferes with our training and development and education for our criminal justice students is that they're doing all of this stuff while dealing with mental health and drug and alcohol issues too. You know, I see a rise in that among our students. And the adjustment, all while maintaining and trying to obtain their degrees so that they can be active members in the field.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Dr. Acklin? Okay, I'm going to spin around the other side. Ms. Biskin, can you give us a little update of what's going on with community corrections?
Yes, hello everyone.
Hello.
It was easy for us to transition into the working remotely. All the staff members had mobile technology, so we were able to deploy all the agents relatively quickly. So what we have going on in the office, we have minimum staffing coverage. There's usually one agent and one secretarial staff in the office. I'm popping in occasionally. All agents are conducting their contact standards with offenders on supervision through Zoom, Duo, or FaceTime. So they're still maintaining contact. With regards to providing evidence-based practices and programming, the majority of the programming has not been made available through contracts. The people that were in programming already were able to continue with programming. However, there's not a lot of programs taking new referrals or new intakes. Our Replace has been wonderful working with the department, so that's one of the programs we've been utilizing. With regards to evidence-based homework, the Department of Corrections was able to swiftly develop some applications where we can send offenders homework over the phone or over the computer, and we get notification when the homework or the skill building cognitive interventions have been completed. And then agents are then going in and reviewing them, obviously via virtual technology. So that has actually been working out really well. With regards to our absconders, a lot of people that we had in absconding status actually came into compliance because they didn't specifically have to report into the office and maybe face potential UAs. So we've located a lot of long-term absconders, which is a positive. In reference to the jail holds, statewide, we have basically released several people from custody. The ones that we felt were able to be safely released from custody. Once, I have a feeling, just like Andrea had said, we're seeing an increase in domestic violence. We're seeing an increase in drug-related offenses. However, it's just really unfortunate because we don't have the alternatives to revocations at this time to provide them with programming. So I anticipate come fall, you're going to see a lot of people back into custody and getting charged with new offenses because there hasn't been a whole lot of accountability like there should have been or there could be. So that's an update with the department. We're working on currently a remobilization plan now that the Safer at Home order has been lifted. We're looking at that, and I anticipate having more and more agents in the office. We'll be practicing social distancing. We're getting sneeze guards. All offenders will have their temperature taken before we pull them back. And I know right now our department is looking at getting COVID testing for every single staff member and offender. Department of Adult Institution is now providing tests for all offenders and staff members currently.
Any questions for Ms. Biskin? Hey, I don't see any, and thank you for joining us. And I just want to say before I ask Ms. Landy, I just want to tell everybody, I don't know, I thought it was a secret for a while, but I think the cat's out of the bag. But as I understand it, that Ms. Landy has been awarded as a Victim Witness Person of the Year. What's the award, Andrea? What's the actual title of the award?
Victim Witness Professional of the Year.
Okay, so that was a statewide honor. So that's, you know, I think a terrific thing to see after all these years hard work. But I wasn't ready for a big speech here, but I just wanted to just to make sure that Ms. Landy was recognized for that. It's quite an achievement. Anytime you get a statewide award from your peers, that's pretty awesome. So with that, are you still there, Ms. Landy?
I am here.
There you are. You're over there. Okay. So anything you'd like to share with us in terms of how, you know, how this pandemic has affected victims and your program?
Well, first off, I'd like to thank you for that recognition. I'd also like to thank the individuals who submitted the nomination, and I'm very humbled and honored at the award. Talking about how we're surviving, just like everybody else, COVID has certainly shaken up our lives as we do it. What we are finding is that we are working daily with victims on the ever-changing options that are available in order that they can receive the services that they wish to be provided. We have used live streaming. I'm actually finding out from a lot of victims that they like the option of live streaming, and in observing it, they are taking advantage of it. We are also using the bridge conferencing as an option so that victims can be present to make a statement. In the midst of all of this, we had Marcy's Law go into effect, which has changed a lot of things in how we do work. So that, in addition to with the obstacles of the closing of the building, victims not being allowed in the building, it certainly has kept us hopping. I feel like we're up to the challenge. We have 2 of our staff that are working remotely, but also for the first time in a year, we now have full staffing within the victim witness program. We were fortunate enough to be able to hire Brad Erickson. Brad retired from the Department of Corrections as a probation and parole agent after years and years of experience. So he comes to our program with a unique position on things. He comes as the only male within a female office. I think that that works well for victims. Brad has a very calming, relaxing demeanor. He has already jumped in with both feet. He's been involved in some of our pre-charging meetings. He's also been involved in working with a number of victims, obviously at this point on the phone. I think that Brad will be an excellent addition to our program, is an excellent addition to our program. I also think that he will be an invaluable resource to the district attorney's office. And so for a lot of reasons, I feel pretty positive right now.
Good. And you know, I saw Brad a number of times and I thought, well, what is he doing here? So maybe he's in the wrong courtroom, but anyway, I realize he is working with the program, so it is good. I think he's a good addition. It's a loss for community corrections, but he's been there. He's been working in the system here for many, many years. So that's really a good thing. So anything else that you would like to add?
No, I think
we could, oh, I'm sorry. We could probably talk an hour on Marcy's Law, I bet, but we don't have the time, right? So anyone have any questions for Ms. Landy? Okay, and now I guess save the courts for last. I don't know if anyone else has something to add, but Judge Smeltzer, do you want to share kind of what are some of the things we're dealing with? Do you want to just kind of go back and forth on that? You got to unmute. You got to unmute the thing. I can see it there. Now
okay. I'll just make it short. A lot of you folks have already discussed it. You know, we're learning technology that I thought I'd never have to learn. And we're doing some live streaming, which Jim and I, after hours, are taking acting classes so we can do it. You know, other than that, you know, we're doing fine. I think the only thing I would say going forward, we're at the position now where we all got to get together. You know, you talked about talking with the sheriff, the jail. We got to get Andrea and us together, and we got to figure out, okay, how are we going to do some of these things? Because we got to start moving the ball forward. I hear Carrie talking about that. We're sitting here not where we're going, but hopefully we take everything we've learned and let's start moving it forward in an effective manner. I think that's what our challenge is. That's what we got to do. And so other than that, I'm not going to add anything else.
Okay, well, I'll just give you a kind of a quick summary of what we're facing. Is one of the big challenges is we have to start having jury trials again soon. We're not exactly sure when. We expect to get the report from the Chief Justice's COVID-19 task force. It should be out this week. I understand there's a 33-page rough draft, and they're going to have recommendations. And so we're going to have to organize a meeting with a number of different players. You know, the district attorney, the sheriff's department, you know, for the court officers, county administration, you know, facilities, public health officer, clerk of court, and we have to talk about how we are going to do this safely. And I mean, that's again worth a whole nother meeting. We talked about that quite a bit at our judges meeting this noon. And so that's one big thing, a challenge that we're facing. The other is the numbers. You know, if Katie was here, she could tell you that revenue is down significantly through the courts, just because, you know, again, traffic stuff, all these different things where revenue comes, that's all short. And but another is that we have had, and although the feedback we get here, Judge Smeltzer and I, from our district court administrator, and their statistics are that we're doing fairly well compared to other courts. We're still, in fact, I think, you know, we're doing about as good as anybody in terms of keeping things moving, but we're still having about roughly 50% of the events, court events that we had, you know, at maybe this time of the year prior to the COVID-19. So they project that to dig out of this backlog for some places, it's going to, you know, right now it looks like maybe 2022 before you get back to a point where it's current. And you know, again, I could go on that, but the point is we've been putting things off because of this, not having everything in person. We have done an awful lot remotely, and that's it's been a struggle, and it takes a lot of energy, more than I thought it would. As much energy to do fewer things as it did before, to do more things. But we're going to have a backlog and maybe a tsunami of cases, and we have people in custody where there's going to have to be speedy trials, you know, in fairly substantial cases. So we do have our work cut out for us, and you know, we've you know, again, I could go on, but there's going to be a real challenge ahead for us. We didn't have our training for our treatment court team. All that was canceled, as everybody knows. Continuing education, I think in every aspect of our professional lives, things are backlogged to some extent. So, but we have been, you know, we've been plugging along pretty regularly. And so, Judge Smeltzer?
Yeah, just a quick one on that. When you talked about what we face, here's the thing. I think we've got an advantage here in Dunn County. A compliment to all of you. I really believe that we can work together in a manner that when you say 2022, I think we can get back up to speed in about half that time, just because we're going to work smart. So let's just go at it with that attitude. We're going to be fine.
Yeah, I think here we are going to be much better off, but in some places they drop. Some courts, I think the national average was like 25 to 30%. They're operating, and so we're going to be in a lot better shape than many of our neighbors as well. And another thing, before I forget, I want to recognize that Supervisor Tripp is the new chairman of the Judiciary and Law Committee, which affects a lot of us and going forward. So welcome aboard, Supervisor Tripp, on that, and that's a good deal for everybody. Okay, anybody have questions for the courts? I know it's getting, we're a little 5:06, and we try to respect your time. And we appreciate everybody, you know, being willing to meet like this. And again, we're going to try to get things rolling with, you know, we've been focusing on the essentials, right? On the basics, you know, just operating. And so we got to get back to some of these extra things, the CJCC, and making sure we're in touch. You know, again, I will try to be in touch with the sheriff. I have a lot of questions about, you know, what we can do. For example, a recent sanction, you know, can I, you know, send someone over to jail? Can I send them over to get their prints or their DNA sample? I've been telling people, you know, get your DNA sample by August 1st, make an appointment with the jail. Jail's not doing Huber right now. So we have essentially worked with the jail to have orders in place to furlough Huber prisoners so they could reduce their populations. But I think the jail has a big story to tell. They've been doing a very good job. And you know, I think everybody's been, you know, working hard to, you know, make sure we're looking after the health and safety of, you know, the people involved. And but it's again, we have a lot of challenges we face, and it sounds like the way it will be with the budgets and so on, that's going to be an added burden. That's going to be very difficult. So, okay, anybody have any parting shots or anything they'd like to add? And unmute if you do.
Sarah, will you just do an update on SIM?
Okay, yeah.
Yes, very quickly. So our sequential intercept model workshop, technical assistance, we were initially looking at a June timeframe for them to come. Because of the COVID, that has been pushed back. So we've earmarked August 13th and 14th. We're still waiting to hear back from our technical assistance providers if they're going to be able to do that. Essentially, all the sites that they had, they're having to compress down to a couple of weeks, and they're really unsure with the future if they're going to be able to get out on site. So right now we're still waiting to hear back, but we're looking at mid-August to early September for that SIM training.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you all. Again, it's about almost 10 after 5, and hopefully we'll get something set up soon, and maybe a little bit more structure, but I really do appreciate your participating and updating us on what's going on, and you're part of the system. And so I guess without any formality, we'll just adjourn the meeting until next time. Okay, thank you all. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you. And congratulations to BJ.
Yep, congrats. Good job.
don't know what we're doing. Well, anyway, but yeah, give me a